Have you ever wondered how a massive empire can be won, not with swords, but with psychology? Well, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a remarkably fast-paced and consequential sequence of events from Islamic history, specifically from the 8th year of Hijrah, or 8AH. We're looking at what is essentially a masterclass in strategy, human psychology, the very real dangers of hubris, and the profound power of mercy. It's an incredible historical arc that literally shifted the balance of power in the Arabian Peninsula in just a matter of weeks. Let's dive in.
You know, every massive historical shift has a catalyst. And here, it was a broken promise. We're going to track an incredible domino effect today. It's like a giant puzzle, where it all starts with the violation of a major 10-year peace agreement. And that single broken promise triggers a peaceful conquest, which then pivots immediately into a terrifying valley ambush and ends up in a fortified siege. It is an absolute roller coaster of military and political history.
So, here's our roadmap for today. 1. The Broken Peace Treaty. 2. Marching on Mecca. 3. The Day of Mercy. 4. The ambush at Hunain Valley. And finally, 5. The Siege of Taif. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's start with the spark that lit the whole fire.
Section 1. The Broken Peace Treaty. A betrayal in the night.
Okay, to really understand this conflict, we have to look at the proxy alliances that held that 10-year peace together. By virtue of the Treaty of Hudaybiyyah, regional tribes had to choose sides. So the tribe of Khuzā allied themselves with Prophet Muhammad and Al-Madinah. On the other side of things, the tribe of Banu Bakr aligned themselves with the Quraysh and Makkah. Now, for a while, the long-standing blood feuds between these two tribes actually cooled down. But as Khuzā grew stronger, Banu Bakr saw an opportunity to gain the upper hand over their rivals, completely disregarding the peace treaty.
So, Banu Bakr saw their opening. Led by a man named Nawfal ibn Muawiyah, they secured weapons and covert consent from certain Quraysh leaders. Under the cover of night, they attacked the sleeping Khuzā tribe at a place called Al-Watir. The victims fled to the sacred sanctuary of Makkah, which by Arab tradition was a place where violence was strictly forbidden, no exceptions. But the attackers followed them anyway, shedding blood right inside the sanctuary. By morning, a Khuzā survivor named Amr ibn Salam was riding as fast as he physically could to Al-Madinah to deliver a poetic plea for help to Prophet Muhammad. The 10-year peace was dead. A decisive response was now absolutely inevitable.
Which brings us to Phase 2, marching on Makkah, and the brilliant use of covert intelligence.
Rather than just rushing in with a straightforward attack, the Prophet executed a masterclass in psychological warfare. His primary goal? Avoid bloodshed through completely paralyzing tactical surprise. First up, absolute secrecy. He ordered the army to mobilize but kept the destination strictly hidden, even from his closest companions. Second, counterintelligence. When a Muslim named Hafiz tried to secretly warn the Quraysh by giving a hidden letter to a woman traveling to Mecca, the Prophet dispatched Ali and Al-Zubair to intercept her right on the road, successfully plugging the leak. And finally, the ultimate psychological blow. When the army secretly arrived just 4 miles outside Mecca, the Prophet ordered every single soldier to light their own individual campfire at night.
Now, to really grasp the impact of those fires, we need a little context. Just a few years prior, at the famous Battle of Badr, the entire Muslim army consisted of a mere 300 soldiers. That was it. That was the scale of the force the Quraysh were used to dealing with.
Contrast that 300 with what Abu Sufyan, the leader of the Quraysh, saw when he looked out into the night from Makkah. 10,000 campfires. I mean, the sheer visual weight of a 10,000-strong army just completely overwhelmed him. He realized instantly that military resistance was completely futile. The psychological warfare had worked perfectly. The city was going to surrender without a single field battle.
Moving on to Section 3, the Day of Mercy, and the reclaiming of Mecca.
Ask yourself, what would you do if you were suddenly given absolute power over the very people who oppressed, exiled, and fought you for 2 decades? You forgive them. When the Muslim army entered the city, one of the commanders, Sa'd bin Ubadah, proudly declared that today was a day of epic revenge and humiliation for the Quraysh. Well, when Prophet Muhammad heard this, he instantly stripped Sa'd of his flag and his command. He corrected him right there, stating, "Today is the day of mercy." When the terrified Quraysh gathered, fully expecting executions, the Prophet delivered a general amnesty, telling them, "You are all set free."
The details of this amnesty are just fascinating. Abu Sufyan, the fiercest enemy for years, was granted personal safety and honor.
The idols were cleared from around the Kaaba without any massive violence. And in a moment of deeply tasteful irony, Bilal, a man who had been brutally tortured as an enslaved person on the hot sands of Mecca, climbed atop the Kaaba to give the call to prayer. Abu Sufyan, sitting below, could only marvel quietly at this complete reversal of fortunes. It was a bloodless victory built entirely on reconciliation.
But the story definitely doesn't end there. Section 4. Ambush at Hunain Valley and the danger of overconfidence.
Literally before the ink on Makkah's conquest was even dry, a new threat emerged from the surrounding tribes. The tribes of Hawazin and Thaqif, under a leader named Malik ibn Auf, feared this newly unified power and decided to launch a preemptive strike. So the Muslim army marched out to meet them, and their numbers had swelled to 12,000 soldiers. But this visual escalation, it created a really dangerous hubris. For the first time ever, the Muslims felt vastly superior in numbers, and that overconfidence almost cost them the whole shebang. Malik ibn Auf knew the terrain perfectly. The enemy hid themselves high in the narrow routes of the valley. At dawn, the trap sprang. A devastating ambush of arrows rained down on them. Complete and utter chaos. The Muslim vanguard broke and retreated in a panic. It was a terrifying reversal of momentum. But, right in the midst of this rout, the Prophet stood his ground, flat out refusing to retreat. His steadfast discipline anchored a small group of believers. They called out to the fleeing soldiers, and by midday they had miraculously regrouped and launched a massive counterattack that broke the enemy lines.
This near disaster was actually immortalized in the Quran, which objectively outlines the spiritual and strategic danger of relying purely on sheer numbers. The verse states, "On the day of Hunain, when your great number impressed you, it did not benefit you at all." It's such a powerful historical reminder for all of us that visible strength and large numbers can easily create a false confidence that shatters the exact moment discipline is lost.
And that leads us right into our final section, the Siege of Taif and the wisdom of restraint. Following the victory at Hunain, the enemy forces fled to the heavily fortified city of Taif, and this drastically changed the nature of the warfare. At Hunain, we saw a chaotic, open-field ambush with sudden charges. Taif, however, was a fortified city siege. The enemy tactics shifted to hiding behind strong, high walls and raining down elevated arrow fire. So the Muslim response had to adapt, utilizing catapults and protective siege equipment to try and breach those defenses.
But Taif's defenses were exceptionally strong. The heavy arrow fire made any direct assault incredibly costly in terms of human life. The siege dragged on for weeks. Ultimately, the leadership made a critical, highly calculated decision, a strategic withdrawal. They assessed that storming the walls would just result in unacceptable losses. Walking away wasn't a defeat, it was a deliberate, tactical choice. It proved that sometimes the absolute best strategic move is patience.
And here is a detail I find really telling. As they walked away from this fiercely defended city, a city that had just been shooting arrows at them for weeks, the Prophet's reaction was remarkable. Instead of cursing the people of Taif in frustration, he offered a prayer for them, saying, "O Allah, guide Thaqif." It perfectly reinforces the overarching theme of this entire campaign, that mercy and long-term reconciliation were always the ultimate objectives, not just blind military domination.
So as we wrap up this explainer, what are the core takeaways from the remarkable events of 8AH? Well, first, as Hunain showed us, numbers and resources simply do not guarantee victory if discipline and focus are lost. Second, as we saw in Makkah, true power is shown through mercy and reconciliation, which creates lasting peace, way better than revenge ever could. And third, the Siege of Taif teaches us that knowing exactly when to strategically withdraw and be patient is a true hallmark of leadership.
Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder. Looking at this incredibly fast-paced year of history, we have to ask ourselves, is ultimate victory actually defined by sheer military dominance? Or is it defined by the capacity for forgiveness and the wisdom of knowing exactly when to walk away? Think about how these historical strategies apply even today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope it sparked your curiosity to dive even deeper into this fascinating history.